Welcome to Brand Bank Build, the podcast about how to build a strong and sustainable finance and marketing mindset to grow your business.
I'm Tara, and I'll talk about all things branding and marketing.
I'm Karen, and I'll talk all things finance and money. We'll overlap because we both have insights about how to grow a strong business, and together we have over 25 years of experience growing and advising businesses.
Yes, I'm excited for today's episode. But first, as always, the information that we share in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, tax, accounting, or financial advice. Always consult with a qualified professional before making any decisions about your business. So we have a really fun episode today. Is it fun? It's not very fun, actually. We're going to
A
talk
little bit
about
disturbing.
gender. It's so disturbing. We're going to talk about gender and the role that gender has in branding. Because I'll give a little background about this. Is that okay, Karen?
Go for it, yeah.
About why? Yeah. So a couple weeks ago, some women ran an experiment on LinkedIn where they changed their gender. And they just changed, that's the only thing they changed, some of them. They just changed their gender to male, and they left their photo, they left their name, all of that stuff, and their impressions skyrocketed. And then some other women kind of took it up and they changed their gender and their name and their profile photo and the way they write and all that. Again, their impressions, their engagement, everything skyrocketed. They've got the screenshots to prove it. And it kind of launched this whole trend on LinkedIn, which was pretty interesting to watch. And it's interesting for us in this podcast because for Karen and me both, authenticity is our thing. And we believe in authenticity. We want to create good content from ourselves. But when we see that changing your gender to male gets you so much more engagement, impressions, we want people to see our stuff, but we just want that to happen. We don't want to have to change our gender to male in order for that to happen. And it seems that that's the case. The algorithm or whatever's happening on LinkedIn, you get more impressions if you're a man. So I explained this to Karen last week, and she's like, I haven't heard of this. So she is the perfect test case. She joined last week or 2 weeks, I think it was 2 weeks ago, changed her gender to male. And what happened?
I think it was just a week ago. It's
Okay.
about a week ago. We delayed the recording, but it was quite impressive.
Mhm.
Because I post 3 times a week and it varies whether I engage with her or not. So I have everything scheduled, all my ideas, all my own content, but it all gets scheduled. And the last few weeks, I hadn't really been engaging. I haven't had the time. I've been busy with client work, for that. But
Yeah.
it meant that I haven't been able to necessarily engage directly with my post. So I changed nothing between the week before and this week. And my impressions immediately went up. So it's funny because the day I changed it, I usually get maybe 200, 300 impressions on a post when it goes out because it's scheduled. I'm not engaging. And that makes sense to me on the LinkedIn platform. But I remember because I messaged Sarah and I was like, oh my gosh, like I changed to a man and immediately I had like 1,000 impressions on same day. And obviously we can't completely control because the post is going to be different. But there was nothing majorly exciting about this post. And I did the exact same where I didn't touch it. I didn't engage. I wasn't doing anything on the platform. And like 1,000 impressions versus normally 200. And what we will now say because I think, so it's probably like 10 days that we've been running the experiment. In the last few days, I've actually had 2 posts again with literally no comments, no engagement from me, which I'm very guilty for right now,
Yeah.
of 5,000, 7,000 impressions. Now, one of them's a controversial one, and one of them's really good.
Okay.
So I would take
Yeah.
that out. And it's also speaking about women's stuff. So it's kind of ironic that that one is gonna be getting higher impressions, but it does suggest to me that just based on my experience that I change nothing else but my gender, and somehow the algorithm rewards me, but it puts me in front
Yep.
of more people, and that, like, I it's as much as you told me and you explained this to me, Tara, and, you said that there was all this, like, evidence, I really didn't expect it to be so obvious so quickly. The day I
Yeah.
changed it the day I changed it, the post went up to the average that up quite considerably, like 5 times the average of what I would normally see in the first couple of hours on my post, which means that my posts, which are scheduled, gets pushed out to a bigger audience via the algorithm purely on the basis that I changed my gender on there, and nothing
Exactly.
else, literally nothing else changed. So, what does that mean for us, Tara? Like, I mean, I was sitting here, I'm not gonna lie to everyone in the audience. I'm sitting here considering why would I change it back? Like, what's
No.
what's the upside of me changing it back when apart from knowing to my core that obviously I have from birth identified as female, woman.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
there's no like I have no binariness to me at all.
Yeah.
And I therefore wouldn't want to change it to male because that's not who I am, but I'm getting negatively
Exactly.
penalized by being who I am. So should I remain authentic or should I take the upside of, it doesn't change anything to anybody else. No one else can see it apart from they'll see my post more. So what do I do?
Yeah. I mean, what you said just now makes me want to cry. Should I remain authentic or should I take the upside? And
Mm-hmm.
that's the terrible thing about this whole experience of being a woman and being on LinkedIn is like I can change that easily. And so another part of this whole trend is that it happened during Trans Visibility Week. And that felt icky because it's easy for us to make that switch. It's just a button on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But a lot of other people don't have that ease. They don't have that privilege to do that. And they also, none of us can do that out in the real world. We show up as women or whatever we present as. And that was tricky. For me, I was like, okay, that's not good. So I changed back. Now I'm sitting in prefer not to say, which is also true. Like, it's none of your business. You don't need to know if I'm a man or a woman on LinkedIn. Like, LinkedIn doesn't need to know that. You know what I mean? But I only found out that it was Trans Visibility Week because people were saying that this is a bad time to be doing this experiment. So it was interesting. So it raises all of these fascinating things for us to talk about. The ease of privilege and the way that nobody lowers their privilege, although a few men did, and they said the same thing you said, Karen. They were like, I expected something, but I didn't expect the change to be so immediate and so drastic. And their visibility went down by 200%, 300%. Again, they've got the screenshots to show that when they changed from a man to a woman, visibility went down. And LinkedIn is saying, no, 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 nothing in the algorithm is triggering and, looking at gender and all that. And it's like, you're gaslighting us because we have the receipts. We all see it in our own numbers. How dare you
Yeah,
tell us
but
that it's in our head?
LinkedIn lie notoriously.
Yes.
Having just gone through the process of getting my data deleted from these third-party platforms that LinkedIn says that they don't give the information to, and that
Yeah.
platform are like, no, we scrape it from LinkedIn. You
Yeah.
can't officially get your data deleted so that people won't get there. But I digress. I mean, LinkedIn
Yeah.
gaslight us and lie that this doesn't affect us, but it does. And like you say, Tara, it's like it's a simple thing for me to change. There's no emotional attachment that I have of changing my gender on there
Yeah.
because I very, very much identify as female. But I can imagine how controversial and complicated that must feel for, anyone in the transgender space. So that is something to definitely bring up. And I don't know what happens when you say prefer not to say on LinkedIn. I don't really know what it links back to or how that affects the algorithm. I most likely will go in that camp with you, Tara, only, and I don't have any emotional attachment to my gender. Therefore, it's weird for me or for me to select that option. But then
Yeah.
again, like I'm clearly being negatively impacted by it. And it
Yeah.
just, sometimes it feels so obvious when you're speaking about being authentic in business to not to be who you exactly are, to feel who you exactly are and not make up stories or,
Yeah.
basically make up parts of you that don't exist. So to me, it does feel complicated because why would I make up the fact that I'm a man? I'm not gonna, I cannot sit here and not speak about the fact that my life in finance would have been 10 times easier if I was a man throughout all of it. Now in person and, having to present myself to people, I can come off as a man, but if I
Yeah.
can digitally,
Yeah.
maybe there's ground to be one. It's because if we want to dial into it, for years I've had to kind of put on what they call like the masculine energy
Right.
in the finance world for the most part, right? Especially when I was working, a lot of the time in person, large corporate offices, lots of men. I
Yeah.
have to put on what I deemed to be inauthentic. The reason that I went remote, the reason that I changed the clients that I wanted to work with, and the reason that this conversation is so disturbing for me and yourself, Tara, is that I did all of that so that I wouldn't have to be inauthentic and that I could show up myself
Yeah.
and, bring my own energy and my own talents to the finances of companies. And a lot of that comes from not being a man.
Yeah. I know. Similar to you, I don't want to be a man. I like being a woman. I'm happy here. So why do we have to change that? In and we're talking about LinkedIn as if it's a thing, but it is a thing. It's how we get our clients, it's how we connect to people. So it is part of our lives. It is a big enough deal that we have to talk about this. And I don't know if you noticed, but like every time you say the word authenticity or authentic, I'm taking a deep breath because it's so painful to me as someone who enjoys personal branding and being authentic to have us question that just based on something that we can't control, like gender. Like it's heartbreaking. It to even have to have this conversation. Like it's just so unfair and it's another part of life that is harder and still I wouldn't choose to change. But the fact that we can easily change it on LinkedIn and see advantages, I don't know. I don't know what the conclusion is here.
I think the overall conclusion is that gender plays a role in
Yeah.
branding, whether we hate that statement, I would say,
Yeah.
jointly hate that statement. I think gender
Yeah.
probably, like, we won't get into this today, but race will also play a heavy role in branding. And,
For
that's
sure.
that's less able to be disguisable. But gender plays a heavy role. I think we can conclude based on everything that we've seen across LinkedIn, based on the experiment that I've ran. It plays a role in the reach that you can get. It plays a role in where you sit at the table. It plays a role across not just in person, which it always has for years. It's very clear the impact across all the digital spaces. I mean, we know this to be true on YouTube also. It's not just a LinkedIn
Yes.
situation. We know that in order to grow in the YouTube world, like male voices, male videos, etc., get more exposure on that
Yeah.
platform. And an element I think of that is cultural, an element of that is a social thing where we primarily enjoy learning from men. Like, yeah, it depends. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
as a whole, I don't mean you
Yeah.
specifically. Yeah, like Tara's face on that one is that speech. I mean, a lot of people, myself included, I'm not gonna lie, myself included, is I learn best or feel more engaged when I'm learning from a man. That doesn't necessarily mean that that man is more educated than me. But
Yep.
and I learn from women too, don't get me wrong. But I think there is a societal thing where there's more respect or something around male voices that are trying to educate. And a lot of the stuff on YouTube, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff out there on YouTube, but a lot of the voices on there that are educational are men, and they get
Yep.
way more exposure, way more impressions, way more ad revenue.
Yeah.
And this is like, don't get me started on the finances of it all, which is, if we're being really brutal about it, if my algorithm is penalizing me, that puts me in front of less people. That means that my growth on LinkedIn is lower, on YouTube is lower. That means that it
Yep.
takes me twice, 3 times, maybe 10 times as long to get to the follower count that men
Hmm.
get to. As a result,
Yep.
what does that mean, Tara? It means less ad revenue, less brand deals, less payment.
Yeah.
So when we talk about equal pay across the world, we don't talk about this though. We don't talk about how much harder and how much longer we have to work in these digital spaces to be able to get to the follower numbers and ad revenue that the men get to. And don't get me wrong, there's a million women, not a million. Okay. That's
Not
a
a
small number,
million.
not a million. There's a lot of women out there doing incredible work, right?
Yeah.
And have amazing followings and have made amazing money off of YouTube, etc. And I don't discredit them, but I know how hard they've worked, and I know that
Yep.
they have to work 10 times harder to get where they need to go just because the algorithm is negatively impacting them. So it's kind of disturbing that we need to show up like harder in digital spaces when I would have expected that as we move into a more remote digital friendly world, that we can let go of some of the constraints that held us back previously, but actually we're still going to be making less or just having to work twice as hard to get to the same money that men are on.
Yep.
That's it.
And people talk about the democratization that we see from online spaces and leveling the playing field, and we're seeing that that's not happening. And part of it is like you mentioned that you like learning from men, and I do too. But the thing is, you might like learning from women, you just don't get to see them. And men might want to learn from women, they don't get to see them. So I have a really concrete example of this. I just got back into film photography, and haven't shot film for 25 years. So I was looking on YouTube to kind of refresh my memory and learn a little bit. I mean, 18 out of 20 videos were men. There were 2 women. And then I'm not even getting more women in my algorithm, even though I'm watching the women trying to teach photography. I don't necessarily only want to learn from men. I want to learn from women too. We have different perspectives and different ways of speaking and ways of teaching that I think can be valuable. And so that was frustrating for me. So then I thought, well, I'll just document my own journey of getting back into film photography. I used to be really good. I shot for a university athletics department, and I majored in photojournalism for a while. So I have some
Oh,
ideas,
good.
but like I'm exhausted. I don't want to. I don't want to try to battle another algorithm just because I'm a woman. Like, and that is probably the feeling that a lot of people have, is like, why bother starting if I'm starting from below ground? Like I don't have the energy for it after dealing with everything else, you know? It's
Yeah.
it,
And
it's another layer of all of this.
I see that. I mean, I see that day in, day out with the CEOs that I work with, right? The female CEOs versus the male CEOs. And
Yep.
just my entrepreneur friend, right? There's a lot of men in my circle that wouldn't think twice about starting a YouTube channel. And it's not to say
Yep.
that they don't know what they're doing. And like, you know, they're very good at content creation. They understand how the algorithm works. They're prepared. They've stocked up. You know, they've played all their cards, right? They know exactly what they need to do on YouTube, but they wouldn't not consider doing it because it's going to be hard to grow. Whereas I
Yep.
actually genuinely know, one, we've had this conversation. Two, I've had
Yep.
this conversation with other women where it's like I really would love to do a YouTube channel, but I don't know if it's actually going to work. And
Yeah.
there's there's something inherent in that because it's not just that we're negative mindset people. For
Nope.
any men that listening in the audience, it's not purely like
Nope.
women overly concerned about, you know, taking the negative impact from things. It's actually, well, kind of set up for me to have to work 10 times harder. And I don't really know how, you know, I don't really know that I want to do that. Whereas I think my male friends would never think that anything was going to not be working in their favor. And again, I'm going to speak primarily about white men. I'm not going to bring race into
Yes.
this one, but I would say
Yep.
white men. And as I work in finance, I'm going to have to mention it, but this trend that I'm seeing on why people don't try and build on LinkedIn and don't try and build on YouTube just reminds me of the investment side of things. Why
Yep.
so many female founders are sitting out there bootstrapping the term their business because to start looking for investment just feels like such an uphill battle that it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Now, I know and you know we don't even need to recycle the stats on this that something like 2% of funding goes to female founders. I believe mixed founder teams, like mixed gender teams, actually get better results for funding. But women on their own, it's just it's not where the funding is. You might argue that's going to be slightly swayed by the fact that a lot of women don't even get in front of those pitches. They don't even take the deck. They don't put things together. Why?
Yep.
Because evidence speaks for itself, right? But you cannot have a statistic that low without it being impacted by the fact that if true, women just don't, but female CEOs just don't necessarily get the investment.
Yeah.
I've been in pitch meetings where I would say I'm disturbed by the questions that are asked to a female CEO versus what would be normal for a male CEO. And that drives me mad because
Mm.
there's a different challenge that goes into it. And you can see it, you can watch Dragon's Den, you can watch any of those TV shows, and you'll see the same thing. Is the questions that are asked, the things that are directed, and no discredit to the dragons and the Shark Tank people. They know exactly what they're talking about, but there's going to be an inherent bias, and there's going to be certain
Yep.
questions that come up for female-led organizations versus male-led organizations. And within that, I just have to say that the investment world is also heavily swayed against women. And then we just think, well, why should I even try? The amount of
Yep.
CEOs that I see, women CEOs that I see that hadn't even considered trying to get investment, whereas like the number of white guys that get on the phone to me saying that they've got this brilliant idea and think that they're going to get £2 million for it is quite
Yeah.
a lot. It's quite high. It's quite high. So it's just,
Yes.
you know, to have confidence in the system is something I've never experienced. I'd love to hear from anyone in the audience that is a man and has either an awareness of that or a feeling around that. But as a woman, I've never had confidence that the system protects me. And seeing evidence like this across LinkedIn coupled with the investment side of things in the finance world, it's not a great feeling, Tara.
It's not. No, it's not. And yet we keep going, but I think we're getting tired. I don't know. I'm getting tired because what can we do? Like it it takes away our power a little bit. It makes us say things like that. Like, well, what can I do? Why would I even start? And that's really discouraging. And it's not going to change anything because people aren't going to hear from you, Karen, and your brilliant ideas about finance because you're buried just because you're a woman. And that's not fair to anybody, you know? The
Right.
men are losing
Yeah.
out by not having access to you and your ideas, and
Yeah.
it's it's a lot. It's heavy.
It's a lot and it's heavy, but let's circle it back to the fact that we are women,
Yeah.
right? Like whether we change the little box on LinkedIn or not, whether
Yeah.
we successfully get in front of people or not, we are women. I identify as
Hmm.
a woman and I identify as female. Therefore, that's who I believe I should be presenting. And that is innately part of what makes me so good at what I do. So, yeah, like,
Agree.
so the only option I see is that we keep moving in the same direction, accept the fact that things are going to be a little bit harder and just push forward. We're not the only people negatively impacted by the system that wasn't built for us, but and I
Right.
know well, I know there's plenty other minorities and parts of the population that are represented by this conversation, but the system
Yeah,
was inherently made not for us. And that
exactly.
that will not change no matter how much we move into digital spaces, no matter how neutral people say things are. Even AI is going to be heavily weighted towards men only because they're going to be the primary users or early adopters of technology. So these are just adjustments that we can choose to make or we can choose to ignore. There's, I don't, I know that it sounds very like deadpan to say like I don't believe we can change it, but I just truly don't think that we can move the dial 100%, right? Like there's some inherent things that we can change 1%, maybe 2% over time. And I'm not saying we don't try and do that, but I think for me, I need to remain authentic to myself. And whether that means that my journey is harder, then
Mhm.
that's my experience, right? That is my experience that I need to go through. I personally have a lot of privilege in other areas. I mean, first I'm white, then I'm
Yes,
British, like I speak multiple languages. I
same.
got a good educational background for free in Scotland. I'm not disputing the privilege that I already have, but
Yep.
yeah, like the I can only push forward and I can keep going in a system that wasn't necessarily built for me and hope that as it gets that 1%, 2% better, that our kids of our kids of our kids, you know, it becomes less and less and less of an issue and algorithms are switched up and everything's a little bit more neutral, whereby people aren't even being asked. Like I still
Yeah.
to this day I don't fully understand why every form in my world I need to complete that piece. Like
Yeah.
I
Shouldn't
don't
matter anymore. We know better.
I don't understand. Like it's just like it
Yeah.
maybe I don't know who's in our audience, but if anyone who is transgender in our audience can explain to me how that feels, because it annoys me. And as I've said multiple times on this podcast, I've never had a dispute. I identify as female. Yet
Yeah.
I don't understand why every digital form I fill in, every form I filled in since birth needs to know what gender I am. Why? Like what's
Yeah.
relevant? How does this affect my LinkedIn? How does it affect? How does it affect? I just like, I mean, I understand age in the digital world, like you need to know whether they have access to certain stuff, but genuine question, Tara,
Yep.
where, in what scenario, like, in what scenario does it matter if I'm applying for something or if I'm registering for something? On what scenario does it actually matter what gender I am?
Yeah. It
Because
shouldn't matter at all.
I can't think of any. Like I genuinely can't think of any since like, I don't know. Like, is the reason that that's on a farm purely on the basis that women couldn't work and women couldn't get a bank account and women couldn't get access to certain things for so long? Is that why it's on there? Like,
Yeah. It's just historical.
yeah,
Yeah. It's how we have always done it. So we keep doing it.
and now it's just
I did.
data-led systems that all platforms
Yeah.
just want our data, so they want to be able to categorize us and make nice summaries and graphs from our information. So that's why they need to know. Yeah.
Yeah. And advertising. Some women found that when they made that switch, they weren't getting ads for face cream and anti-aging and stuff like that, which is interesting. I never really noticed the ads on LinkedIn. I don't think I was getting any of those.
No,
I
but
feel like
that's
I get a lot of,
carry
it's
on.
part of it. Yeah, I get ads for universities and college, like, but I have a master's degree. I'm not going back.
Yeah,
It's
I must
interesting.
admit, and hopefully LinkedIn doesn't hear this, but the ads on LinkedIn are very irrelevant to my world. Like I just don't pay attention to them. Like if anything, they just get deleted, canceled, whatever. I take them off of my screen. But there's nothing.
Yeah.
I don't know if their targeting's really bad or whatever, but it just doesn't fit in. But it's key on. You would expect it, and it's been there for years on platforms like Facebook, on
Yeah.
platforms like Instagram, probably, where on
Yeah.
Facebook you change your status from single to in a relationship, and all of a sudden you're getting like, you're getting like wedding style,
Yeah.
wedding
Yeah.
style content and advertisements and all that kind of stuff. You change your status or your gender on there, everything changes. I would expect
That'd be
that to be the
fun.
same on LinkedIn, but like, very different because the LinkedIn ads are going to be very different. But I know that to be true on Facebook. It's been for years. Like you change
Yeah.
anything about your stats on there,
And
and
it,
actually it'd
yeah,
be super fun to
it
change
changes
on to
everything.
be a guy on Facebook. I don't even
I
use Facebook,
know.
but like to
I know.
change to a guy on Facebook and be like, oh, interesting, because the amount of ads they get like just for
Yeah.
clothes and this and that. And it's a fright because women are consumers. Yeah. Anyway, I
Yeah.
digress on that topic, but
Yeah.
I think that you make a solid point around the fact that you
For
change that
ads.
on LinkedIn and the ads are going to be different. Like, because
Yeah.
I do, I'm sure, even though I don't pay attention to them, I do get elements of skincare. And don't get me wrong, there's an amazing founder that I've come across because of probably the algorithm in LinkedIn, and she runs a skincare company. So there's benefit
But
to
men
it.
have skin too.
They do. They
That's so
do have
silly.
skin. Yeah, they do have skin. They have hair. Some of them have hair. And they all have skin. So they all need these
Yes.
products. No, but it doesn't matter. Like in the same way, I
No.
guarantee you, I'd love to actually change it. Do we have in LinkedIn, do they have like single, in a relationship, married? Is that part of
Oh,
your,
I don't think so.
I don't think they
Gosh,
do
I hope not.
in your stuff. Not just be interested to see like what would change if that
Yeah.
part changed. I don't think it's on there. I don't remember filling that out, and
I
especially when
don't
I
think
changed
so.
it. But yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
guess what's your overall thoughts on this, Tara, in terms of, our original question was, does gender play a
Yeah.
heavy role in branding? Which I think we have agreed that it does.
Yeah.
Would you consider altering your gender for
No,
brand purposes?
no. And here's why. I felt a little nudge from you to get back be a little more positive. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to say there are good things about being a woman. There are things that I enjoy. And I think the challenge that we have been presented with in this world has led us to be more creative in our branding and our marketing of ourselves. We have empathy, we have persistence through these tools that are holding us down. So I think we can lean into our strengths and, continue to be creative and empathetic. I think that's what makes me good at marketing is that I can so easily put myself in someone else's shoes because I've always been in someone else's shoes. And that's that's something that is going to help your branding, your positioning, your business, and it's going to help you connect with people whether you checked that male female box on LinkedIn. I think these are strengths that we can lean into and take pride in.
Yeah. And if there are any women in our audience listening to this, I just want to remind you that as women, we are built for endurance. We are literally biologically designed for endurance, for getting through painful things, for getting through breaking through barriers, giving life. So, yes, the algorithms are stacked against us. I can't sugarcoat that because we just discussed it for 40 minutes. However,
Yep.
we're designed to do that. We're designed to get through it by our biological nature. So while I wouldn't necessarily recommend changing your just designated gender on LinkedIn, I would say that just know it's gonna be a little bit more challenging, but you've got the capability to do it. I've got the capability to do it. Tara has the capability to do it. And honestly, we're out there doing that, right? Like there's
Yep.
where we're going against the grain, we're moving against the tide, and we can still be successful in this area. It saddens me a lot when people don't start things because they feel that the odds are stacked against them.
Yep.
And I understand the mindset of that. But if more women put themselves in arenas to get investment, more women will get investment. If more women
Yeah.
put themselves on LinkedIn, more women will get recognition on LinkedIn. While I don't believe that we'll fundamentally change everything in the short term, I do believe that we can continue to move the dial slowly and
Yep.
surely. And that I think that every woman sitting in our audience today should keep moving, should keep going, and should keep putting themselves out there on LinkedIn because we need your voices. I need to hear
Yeah.
your voices. I want to be learning from women. I love every interaction I have with women on LinkedIn because it feels like I'm seen. It feels like I'm accepted.
Yep.
It feels like we're finally in this space where I don't have to show up as somebody else to do what I'm doing because, as you've just said, Tara, we have a lot of strengths to bring to the
Yep.
table that men don't naturally have. And that's what
Yeah.
makes us good at what we do. That's what makes you
Yeah.
great at marketing. That's what makes me great in the finance arena.
Yeah. 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 I would say we are smart and clever. So if changing your gender to male gives you the numbers you want, go for it. Make the smart choice or try it, see how it feels to you. It didn't feel great to me. So I changed to prefer not to say, which feels true. And yeah, so I like that option for myself. But I think we got to do what we got to do, man.
I want to see after this experiment that happened, a couple of weeks ago. I would love to see LinkedIn statistics on how it went from, say, we're in December now, but say they looked at, and I'm a geek for numbers, as you all know, but like if we took November percentages of like, oh, we have 10 million people on LinkedIn, 50% of them are women and 50% or 40% of them are men and 10% of them are prefer not to say. like, for example. And then in December, I would love to see how that shifted, right? Where like prefer
Yep.
not to say is now 60% on LinkedIn and 40% are men in that bit. Like that would be, because, okay, it's not going to be that extreme, but I would expect there to be a significant percentage change where there's a higher percent now on this very platform that are no longer choosing to say. It's still not authentic, but they're no longer choosing to say it because if honestly, I prefer not to say. If it's been a negative impact me, you don't need to know this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my way of seeing it.
Yeah.
None of your
Yeah.
business.
None of your business. We're
Okay.
done here. Okay, should we set up? I think this is a topic that Tara and
Yes.
I can both agree we talk on for hours, hours and hours and hours. If there are any points that came up in today's episode that you want to read into further, please engage with us in the comments of the episode. Please message us directly on LinkedIn. I'd love to have some conversations around some of the topics that we brought up today and really dig into this further. But let's summarize it and come up with our key brand bank build from today's episode. Tara, what do you think?
Yes. For brand, I really think remaining authentic on your gender, it can negatively affect your brand. Yeah. But I think we still have to do it. We have to stay authentic anyway.
Yeah, authenticity is important with brand.
Mhm.
Yep. But we need to be aware that it negatively impacts us. Bank, I mean, the same thing is true. Unfortunately, remaining authentic on your gender can have a negative impact on your direct revenue and your all of the KPIs that you have in your business. That being said, there are women out there doing it. There are women out there making more money, more revenue than men. So it can be done. Yeah.
So build authenticity. Build that authenticity in a world that tries to weaken you. Stay strong. We're there with you. I'm a little bummed that we're still having this conversation
In
in
2025.
2025. But I'm also heartened that we're having this conversation. I think it's something that needed to happen on LinkedIn, here on this podcast. I think it's something that really, really needed to be seen and acknowledged. And LinkedIn hasn't acknowledged it, but hopefully they will, and we can start to make some changes so that we are all heard. We all deserve it.
We do. We do. And on that positive note, we'll end our podcast today. But thank you so much to everybody in the audience for listening. Thank you, Tara, for engaging. And we'll see you
Yes.
next time on Brand Bank Field.
Yes. Thank you. Okay.